Coming to a YouTube channel near you.
Hello, welcome everybody. Hello there. Let's see who we got out there. Roger Blair, we got Joey, we got Lori in the house. Lorna, hello there. And don't forget, we got Little Twisted. Welcome, Little Twisted. How we doing there on a Wednesday evening as everybody's starting to slide in? Welcome to another edition. Oh, we have somebody special today. And don't forget, this weekend, we are filming in Kentucky. Yes, filming. We're going to be filming 24 hours a day. We're going to be filming live. We're going to have cameras set up to watch us sleep. So if you all see something as we are filming at our haunted location, welcome, Tabitha, Lachelle. Nice to see you there, Lachelle. I'm glad you joined us. So yeah, Justin and I are going to be filming at the museum and also at the Haunted Inn down in Harlan, Kentucky. So make sure and tune in for that, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be arriving on location Friday afternoon, setting up cameras and taking tours and interviewing. So tune in for that. We'll put out the links for y'all to join the show. But today, we have Maximum Furek. We're going to talk about his book, The Lost Tribe of Bigfoot. So let's go ahead and bring him on the show. Hello there, kind sir. How you doing?
Good to see you, Grizzly. Hey, thanks for the invite, and what a wonderful intro that you have to your show. This is pretty great.
Thank you. Yeah, I make them all myself. So introduce yourself and give us a little background about you. You're real famous, and I'm honored to have you on our show today. Thank you. Round of applause to you.
Listen, for all the listeners out there, don't listen to any of that. I'm not famous.
You are.
I've been in the paranormal business for just under 10 years. I've been in it for 9 years, and I'm a former rock journalist. I'm a former psychologist and rock journalist. And way back when I was writing a rock biography about the song Timothy. Now, just like, you have all of your Kentucky folklore and everything, back home in the coal region of northeastern Pennsylvania, there was a song called Timothy. It was 1971, and it was about cannibalism in a mine. That was the most successful song by any local rock act to come out of our area. So we just loved it. Finally, we got local boys, hometown boys who hit it big nationally. So anyway, Timothy, the song, recorded by the Boys, B-U-O-Y-S, was about cannibalism. And the more I investigated this, I realized that the song Timothy paralleled what happened in the 1963 Shepton mining disaster, where 3 guys were entombed for 2 weeks and only 2 came out. And the townspeople wanted to know, hey, what happened to your buddy? And there were allegations that they ate him. So the Shepton mine disaster, the more I investigated it, the more I saw these paranormal stories, examples of out-of-body experience, near-death experience, and afterlife experiences. They saw aliens. They saw all kinds of things in the in the pitch black, and it was just an amazing story of human survival, of aliens and life forces and paranormal things. And also, and here's the thing that was really crazy: the miners claimed that Pope John the 23rd was in the mine for them for 2 weeks. Now, get this.
Wow.
Pope John the 23rd died in June of 1963. Shepton took place in August of 63. He was dead when this happened. And in all of the his miracles, and with Catholic, mythology, Catholic tradition, you have to demonstrate 2 miracles to be canonized, as a saint.
Right.
As
right.
a holy person, who that God worked through. And it's all about God. But anyway, all 3 of the miracles that Pope John the 23rd did happened after he had died. So my book Shepton came out in the first day of 2016, 9 years ago. And then since then, Coal Region Hoodoo, again, Pennsylvania centric. It has stories about Bigfoot and UFOs, but it's all Pennsylvania stuff, like the Blob and Night of the Living Dead and the Philadelphia Experiment. We got some good stuff there. And I'll tell you what, I don't know how weird Kentucky is, but Pennsylvania is a weird state. I mean, I'm here to tell you.
Yeah, oh yeah. I mean, Kentucky and Pennsylvania, yeah, they're neck to neck. I guarantee you. Guarantee you.
Yeah. So 2016, I had the Shepton book, and then that opened up the doors for me. So I researched Coleridge Hoodoo, Paranormal Tales from Inside the Pit. And then the other one was Flying Saucer Esoteric. And now, of course, my latest one, The Lost Tribes of Bigfoot. So it's just been a crazy, wonderful ride. It's been a great trip. And, you know, oh, love the Kurt poster. Thank you, Joey. Appreciate it.
My eyes. So I see Marilyn Manson back there. You know, people don't know my music taste. However, I'm fascinated about that. So the Lost Tribes of Bigfoot was recently banned at the 2024 Bloomberg Fair. Why was that?
Yeah, that's crazy. I didn't really get an official reason, but you know, the one thing that and you can't find City Hall. There was no way that I could get back there. But let me say this: you know, they every year this Bloomsburg Fair, which is one of the largest county fairs on the East Coast. You know, if it's not the largest, it's in the top 3. But anyway, I had been a part of this authors group that they would invite there every single year. I was a part of it. I would help with the promotion and publicity. This year, right after The Lost Tribes of Bigfoot came out, the book, and I was banned from that. And the only thing I could say is that I think it had to do with some of the stuff that I might have ruffled the feathers of some of the creationists. You know, and again, a lot of this came about in Kentucky when we went to visit the Ark. And, you know, I'm all about science. I believe that if we're going to go and investigate the paranormal and cryptids, we need to bring it a little bit closer to the scientific realm. Right. And that what I saw at Noah's Ark in Williamstown, Kentucky, was just very anti-science. It was pseudoscience. And we were talking before this, but if you go aboard the Ark, they would have cages of the giraffes and the elephants and the horses and everything that Noah brought over. But they also had cages for little baby T-Rexes, Tyrannosaurus Rex, and also little Stegosaurus. And as far as I know, and again, I took them to task in my book, The Lost Tribes of Bigfoot. But for your listeners out there, again, when we talk about what happened to the dinosaurs, well, what happened was, millions of years ago, there was a thing called the KT event. It was the Cretaceous Tertiary Extinction Event. It's called the KT event, and a meteorite or an asteroid came and hit the Yucatan Peninsula. It killed all the non-avian dinosaurs, wiped them out. They were gone. Man didn't come around until 65 million years later. So that's how that worked. Man and dinosaurs didn't walk the earth at the same time, no matter what you see on Hollywood, with Raquel Welch and the million years BC or whatever. But, man didn't walk the earth with dinosaurs. And how do we know this? Well, you look at the scientific record, and just two things. You look at the fossil record. And Grizzly, you know this. The archaeologists have been able to go and pinpoint a concentration of an element called iridium. Iridium comes from outer space, does not come to the earth. They found this deposit of iridium around the same time that they believed that the dinosaurs went extinct, so many millions of years ago. And then specifically in Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula, they were able to go and find exactly where that crater was, where that meteorite or asteroid hit. So we've been able to put 2 and 2 together and connect the science, the archaeology and science with the theories. And so, when the creationists talk about this, it's really just, it's nonsense. And it goes, I think, here's the other thing too, it goes beyond the Bible. The Bible doesn't talk about T-Rexes and man walking the earth, it talks about giants.
Right, absolutely. Talk
about that. So the people that are conjuring this are creationists, and they have another agenda. And unfortunately, I believe part of it is a political agenda. And in my book, The Lost Tribes of Bigfoot, I sort of go to war with them, and they responded. My book got banned. So, It probably won't be the first and only time that's going to be banned. But, I think when you speak the truth, you pay the price.
No, you do. Absolutely. Can you explain the most controversial chapter in your book? And also, is Bigfoot our new religion?
Well, that's the chapter, is Bigfoot the new religion? And so part of it, I talk about the Ark experience in Williamstown, Kentucky, and the anti-science that I found there. But the other thing I found this, and listen, and I want all your listeners to hear this. I mean, I'm a spiritual guy. I miss Kurt Cobain too. I'm a spiritual guy. I believe that we're all made in the image and likeness of God. We're all godlike, and we all have a spiritual essence that we have to go and experience. We need to invest in. Now, as a baby boomer, my group was born between 1946 and 1964. And there was a recent survey where they compared us baby boomers against Generation Z. And these are the people that were born after 1997. The oldest ones are 27 years old. Grizzly, they compared baby boomers, and 64% of my peers believed in God and believed in organized religion. 64%. Right. And now, after baby boomers, we had Gen X. That's Kurt Cobain's group. We had the millennials, and now we got Gen Z, and 24% of Gen Z believes in God and believes in organized religion. So if that's true, then how does a human express his or her spirituality? And if it's not through organized religion and going to church, then how about going out in the woods with your fellow Bigfoot searchers and having that commonality, that the common shared values, that higher power, that sacrifice, that communal thing, the woods being the forest. And, just read anything by John Muir, the guy who put together the Audubon Society, the naturalist, and just read how John Muir said, if you want to stare into the face of God, just go take a walk in the woods. So the woods are a very spiritual place. And, so that was the chapter in my book, is Bigfoot the new religion. And I've been getting some not kickback. I've been getting some pushback on that. And again, I think, we need to, know the truth from the lies and identify what the truth is. So that's all I'm doing. And again, that's just in the realm of being a honorable journalist. You speak the truth, you write the truth. So.
Yeah, in 2023, Western Pennsylvania cryptid. That's where you were in Johnstown, PA, weren't you? Yeah. The featured speaker. Talk about that.
Well, along with Eric Altman with the Pennsylvania Bigfoot Society, Stan Gordon, he's like our FBI/CIA. Here's the thing with Stan Gordon. I don't know if you know that name.
Yes.
But, okay. Stan documents all this crazy weirdness in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And whenever anybody calls the Pennsylvania State Police and says, I've seen a UFO or I've seen a Bigfoot, they say, call Stan. So they have Stan's phone number there. So they call Stan Gordon, and he documents all this stuff. I'll give you a good example. And I'll name names. Last year, my neighbor, Joe Lipinski, was driving through Mackinac. We live in Mackinac, a tiny little mountain community in Pennsylvania. And as Joe Lipinski was driving out of the cemetery, he saw on the tree line not one but two Bigfoot. One was cinnamon colored, and the other, the black one, was larger. And I asked him, numerous questions. How did they act? What did they do? He said that they looked at him. They seemed curious, not afraid. And then they walked away, not like apes, but like humans. And so afterwards, me and my wife went out there. We were looking for tracks, and we went out there for a couple of days just looking for things. We found some tracks, but I don't think that they were Bigfoot tracks. But again, this is in my backyard. This is in my hometown. This is in the mountains of northeastern Pennsylvania. So, Pennsylvania allegedly is the state with the third most Bigfoot sightings. And a lot of this is attributed to what Stan Gordon has documented. But with the Johnstown Bigfoot Expo, I was there with Eric Altman, Stan Gordon, Ron Murphy, a number of people, and it was just a wonderful experience just to go and talk about my research and meet so many people. I mean, this was just great. The Bigfoot community is huge. There's a lot of followers out there.
Yes, a huge following. And speaking of followers, I noticed that you dedicated your book to some people. Let's talk about that, please.
Yeah, these are the four horsemen of Sasquatchery, and all four of these guys. I'm looking for my thing, but Rene DeHinden,
yes,
was the guy that took the Patterson-Gimlin film, and he took it over to Russia so that the Russian primatologist, anthropologist could take a look at that and validate it. So DeHinden did that. Peter Byrne was a very interesting dude. He came over here. He was a Irish game hunter, and there was a Texas millionaire named Tom Swift. And Tom Swift, who was an oil man who had a whole lot of money, he sent Peter Byrne over to the Himalayas to look for the Yeti, the abominable snowman, and also to the Pacific Northwest. So he did his part. All of these guys, Grover Krantz, all of the Peter Green, all of these guys, the four horsemen of Sasquatchery, were the pioneers. And Grizzly, this was before the day and age of technology, before computers, before drones, before we had the internet. And Renee, and Peter, thank you. Yep. 20. Yep. One interesting thing about the four horsemen of Sasquatchery, when you take a look at their ages, and I use the starting point of 1958, and that's when Jerry Cruz saw all of the big tracks in Cripple Creek, and 1958, that was when the word Sasquatch or Bigfoot just hit the newsstands with the Humboldt Times article. So the world started to hear about Bigfoot in 1958. But I took a look at all the four horsemen of Sasquatchery, and their ages in 1958, most of them were in their late 20s, early 30s. I mean, this is that age of youthful adventure and experimentation. I mean, these guys were living their Indiana Jones life, searching for this unknown cryptid. I mean, this is what they did. This identified who they were.
These are the OGs of Bigfoot.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. They are. And we owe so much to those people. And so I dedicated my book to them, because you can't do any Bigfoot research without reading about them. And what did they do? Well, they would hear about a Sasquatch sighting. They would go there and interview the people and take notes. They would document this. They would go and take a look at the footprints and make casts. They would compare them to humans and to bears. So everything they did was, they were the early pioneers, and it was just amazing what they did. And we owe a great deal of debt to them. And all the other people like Jeff Meldrum and Lauren Coleman and Nick Redfern, I mean, all those people came after. And but again, they walk in the shadow of those great pioneers. So that's why I dedicated my book to them.
Yeah, that a lot of people don't realize. See, back then, Bigfoot name was not coined at that time, was it?
That was, and what happened was 1958. The word Bigfoot entered our lexicon, our American lexicon. So what happened was, with the Humboldt Times, the editor starts getting thousands of letters about people that have seen this abominable snowman. They called it California's abominable snowman.
Right, right.
So that's right. So everybody's hysterical and doing the dance and everything else. And then what they did was they realized that, wait a second, this is nothing new. This is not new and improved. The British Columbians, the Pacific Coast natives up there talked about Sasquatch for thousands of years. They had totem poles, and they had oral traditions and songs and poetry about what they called Sasquatch. It was our Bigfoot, but Sasquatch was around a lot longer. And then we just, our white Western civilization found out about it later. But the Pacific Coast tribes believed that to see a Sasquatch was a blessed event. You were honored if you were to see one. They believed that Sasquatch was telling us to protect the environment and to take care of our land and our planet. And I think the whole thing right now with Bigfoot is something that is positive, and again, especially during this day and age of global warming and climate change, and the horrific flooding that we had in North Carolina. And they're describing the flooding in Asheville and Hickory and all around, the biblical proportions, catastrophic events, trillions of gallons of water dumped into Asheville. That is a valley. I mean, we've never seen that, heard that. I have friends in Asheville. We're heartbroken. We're sickened. Even Fate magazine, Phyllis Galdi lives there in North Carolina. I spoke with Phyllis this morning, and she doesn't have electricity. I mean, Phyllis Galdi, who took over the reins of Fate magazine, and
so our hearts and prayers go out to any family members or victims that are in the tragedy. We should have mentioned that at the beginning of the show.
And I do want to say this. If speaking of Fate, the next issue of Fate magazine, I don't know if any of your listeners are subscribers, but the next issue is going to have an article that I did on Chestnut Ridge. And
really?
Chestnut Ridge is that area of weirdness out in western Pennsylvania. And so that'll be featured. That's one of the featured articles in the next issue of Fate, which is going to be in full color, as Phyllis tells me. So I'm looking forward to that. And it's a good magazine to support. I mean, they've been supporting the paranormal and the spiritual and the supernatural, and UFOs for a long, long time.
Awesome. Ava Twitch Festival. Are you going to be a guest speaker?
I sure am. Well, I'm not going to be a guest speaker. I'm going to be there, and I'm hoping to be a guest speaker next year. But we'll have a table there inside the pavilion overlooking the Susquehanna River. And they're expecting thousands of people. Grizzly, this is Pennsylvania's equivalent to the Mothman Festival out there in West Virginia. So the Alba Twitch is a tiny little gremlin, a 3-foot gremlin, and it's folklore. It's, I think, Pennsylvania Dutch superstition. But we celebrate our Alba Twitch, and so we'll be doing that this weekend on October the 5th. And it's in Columbia, Pennsylvania, right outside of Lancaster. Very, very scenic.
Now, didn't that happen in 1924?
What's that? The Alba Twitch?
The abduction?
No, yeah, the abduction, the Bigfoot abduction was Albert Ostman. Yeah, that happened in 1924.
So let's talk about that, because I got a fascination. When I saw that, I wanted to ask you about that.
Yeah, well, in my book, I have a chapter on Albert Ostman, but this happened in 1924. Ostman was a Swedish-Canadian logger, forester, hunter, and he was camping out there in the woods there in British Columbia. And something was messing up his campsite. Somebody was stealing his food, destroying things, leaving tracks. So what Albert Ostman did was he hid inside the sleeping bag with a rifle, and he was going to wait for this culprit, this bandit, to wake him up, and he was going to jump out of the sleeping bag and shoot him. Well, what happened was something picked up Ostman and started to carry him for miles and miles. And he was set down, and here it was a family of Sasquatch. He was carried there to this valley by a male Sasquatch. There was a female, and there was also a son and a daughter Sasquatch. So they were intrigued by this white man, and they're watching with the sleeping bag. So they're watching him. They fed him sweet grass. and they're just very curious. But Osman got the feeling that they were going to use him for procreation, and he started to freak out. So he's making a game plan for how to escape. And what he decided to do is he was going to entice the male Sasquatch, the husband, with his chewing tobacco. He was going to entice him with the chewing tobacco and then shoot him. Well, what he did was he enticed this Sasquatch with the chewing tobacco, and the Sasquatch got sick. So at that point, Albert Osman took off, and he kept his mouth shut. He didn't talk about this at all. This is 1924. And then years later, there started to be stories and rumors about this Sasquatch-like creature. So Albert Osman went forward and he contacted John Green, one of the original four horsemen of Sasquatchery.
Right.
Told John Green his story. This was many, many years later. And John Green believed that the story was credible. And John Napier believed that the story was credible. And John Napier, who was, should have been, I believe, the fifth horseman of Sasquatchery. He was a British primatologist and anthropologist, and he had a real good fascination for Sasquatch and Bigfoot and the abominable snowman, as well as other things. But he did research into that. But he thought that Albert Osman's account of Sasquatch was credible, but he thought it was authentic, but he also thought that it was very common. It was very ordinary. It wasn't dramatic and over the top. Nevertheless, it was the first, and I think only account I've heard of a Bigfoot abduction. So this 1924 account of a Bigfoot abduction parallels what happened to Betty and Barney Hill in the early 60s when they were coming back from a vacation, and they claimed that they were abducted by a flying saucer going through the White Mountains of New Hampshire. So again, 1924 and I think it was 1961 when Betty and Barney Hill were abducted. So there was a parallel though. Now we've had numerous UFO abductions, but we've only had one Bigfoot abduction. So amazing, 1924 and 1961. So
you're right. What is it called? The Piltdown Man.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
Well, you can't talk about Bigfoot and Sasquatchery without talking about the academics and the scientists and the witnesses, but also the hoaxers.
Right.
And Piltdown Man, I have 3 chapters on the hoaxers. One, the Piltdown Man, the other is the Minnesota Iceman. But the Piltdown Man, there was a guy named Charles Dawson. He was an attorney and he was an amateur fossil collector. And he claimed that he found the remnants of what he called the Piltdown Man. And what happened was it was a hoax. It was a human skull that was thousands of years old, and also the jaw of an orangutan. So what he did was he peppered these bones with iron oxide. He filed the teeth of the orangutan to look like it was more human than ape. And he claimed that he had found something. Now, what was happening? I mean, you got to take a look at this in a historical context. This was in Great Britain, but in Germany, they found, Sonny, you're correct. Betty and Barney Hill is a great story. But they found out in Germany, the Heidelberg Man, which was an original hominid, that was millions of years old. Great Britain wanted to have their version of Heidelberg Man. So they had Piltdown Man. Now, they wanted it for national glory. It was for nationalism. They want to fly that Union Jack high.
Right.
And it took something like 40 years before Piltdown Man was proven a hoax, only because the politicians and the historians and the scientists wanted to have their own Heidelberg Man. And so they kept the truth from the public. That's what happened. That was the, the crime, the travesty. That they kept the truth from the public only because of political interest for political currency. And that's why they did it. And Charles Dawson will go down as one of the main hoaxers that kept us from having the science to investigate and sort of took us down a rabbit hole. It was a disingenuous rabbit hole that was unscientific. It was pseudoscientific. So, he needs to get spanked every chance we get. So,
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that. Concur. Well, you know what? If we're talking about this, we have to bring up the Minnesota Iceman.
yeah, and that's another parallel. So, Charles Dawson contrived his Piltdown Man, but then with the Minnesota Iceman, Frank D. Henson, he was a showman. He was and what he did was he put together this thing, and he claimed that he found it floating in a block of ice off of Siberia. So he was showing this around at the different exhibits, and two very prominent cryptozoologists, Ivan T. Sanderson, who coined the term cryptozoology, and Bernard Helvemans, who was the father of cryptozoology. They believed that this Minnesota Iceman was the missing link that connected apes to man. And I'm going to talk about the missing link fallacy a little bit later, but Sanderson, Helveman looked at it, and they smelled it, and they thought that this was, in the ice, it was decomposing. So they believed that it was the true thing. And then evidently it was switched, and there was a latex body there instead of the real one. So Frank D. Henson said that he swapped out the real one for this latex body one. So, it was just one lie after the other. But the end result of this was that cryptozoology got a black eye because they followed this missing link hypothesis down the rabbit hole, and they had mud on their face because it just wasn't true. The thing about the missing link, there's no such thing as a missing link. Man and ape came from a single common ancestor, the SCA. And millions of years ago, apes branched off from that single common ancestor and climbed the trees and successfully evolved. And then later, man evolved from that branch and climbed the trees and stayed up there, and then came down as Homo erectus and Homo sapiens. And then we were bipedal, we walked on 2 feet, we made fire and the wheel and war and everything else, so language. But we are different. We didn't come from apes. There's no missing link. But I'll say this. Homo sapiens is closer to some of these great apes than those great apes are to themselves. Homo sapiens shares 98% of the DNA with chimpanzees, bonobos, and gorillas. 98%. I'm going to hit you with a lot of statistics. 30% of us have Neanderthal DNA. 30% of us has as much as 3% Neanderthal DNA. And what happened was that the Neanderthals, who are our closest relative, Neanderthals, procreated with Homo sapiens and had offspring. So some of us, as many as 30% of us, have Neanderthal DNA. Now, what does that mean? Well, as far as we can tell, what we get from Neanderthal DNA would be hair color, we get sleep patterns, and we get cardiac issues. So that's what we know, at this point. But that whole realm of the evolutionary trail is just so fascinating. And and the people that are looking for Bigfoot, I call my book The Lost Tribes of Bigfoot, because they're looking at these other tribes like Neanderthal, like Gigantopithecus, like Yeti, Sasquatch, Bigfoot, whatever. I mean, they missing link. I mean, they still fit that missing link, that erroneous missing link thing in there. But people are looking, and even Gigantopithecus, which was a 12-foot tall orangutan-looking ape. Some people like Jeff Meldrum believe that they may connect us to Bigfoot and may still be around in some form. Now, most researchers believe that Giganto died off, millions of years ago, but some people believe that he may still be around, came to North America from Asia through the Bering Strait when the continents were together. So it's a theory, and I talk about that theory in thank you, Tabitha.
Yeah, she loves your brain, Mr.
Yeah,
Fury.
right, okay. Yeah, you're making me blush. Yeah. So anyway, that's that. The book's been out about a month. The book's already been banned. I've done, I think about 20, podcasts, maybe more, but it's just been amazing. And I just want to thank the paranormal community for being so accommodating and so receptive for me, because I consider myself as a researcher and as an academic. I look at the woo side. They call us guys woo, or I've been called Dr. Woo, but that's okay, because I claim if it's not, well, orangutans rarely come down to the forest floor. Sonny 11, listen to this. With Gigantopithecus, the reason why Giganto died off is because Giganto was too big to climb those trees and get the fruit.
That is correct.
So Giganto died off because they ended up eating the bark and the leaves and the grass, and they died off. They were too big. They were humongous, and they couldn't climb those trees. So that was thanks for that post. But
yeah, fabulous.
Yeah, but amazing stuff. And anyway, if it's not flesh and blood, then what is it? And I take a look at the interdimensional theory, the Jungian's collective unconscious, which is as a former psychologist, a fascinating concept. So anyway, that's what I bring to the table, and
so I notice you go into great lengths to call out all these Bigfoots and UFO hoaxers, and they get me fired up, right? Because I say we got these little Johnnies running around in ape suits in the woods and causing havocs, right? We have them, but you also call them out in your book. Why does it get you so angry?
Well, because they piss me off, because what they do is, they're disingenuous, and we need all the support we can get from the public and from the scientific community. And those hoaxers, all they do is they degrade us. That's what they do. And I claim in my book that they've sold their souls. So, you know who they are. Some of those people I talk in the book, I talk about people like Ray Wallace. And he was the one. I said Cripple Creek, I meant Bluff Creek, the footprints that were there in 1958.
Right.
They were accurate, authentic footprints, but Ray L. Wallace was the one that made these wooden ones. And when you compare his amateurish, stupid footprints with the authentic ones, the actual ones, the ones we believe are authentic, you can tell the difference. This guy was just an amateur. So he was one, and then Ricky Dyer was another one. So they're infamous as far as the footprints. Lauren Coleman disputed Wallace's notoriety because a lot of the media was giving him notoriety and saying that a Bigfoot was faked because of him. And Lauren Coleman said, quote, "Fakery not revealed is a lie that lives on into the future," end quote. And Lauren Coleman was one of the first, maybe one of the few, to call out this Ray Wallace, and let the world know that he was a fraudster. So.
Yeah, and it does. People don't understand, right? And when people send me evidence and pictures and videos and recordings, and it's just like, really? And it's like, why are you wasting my time?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I have a foot. I think I straddle both sides as far as the Bigfooters, the Sasquatchers. Here's the thing, J. Allen Hynek, who was a skeptic at first. He was a ufologist. He was a skeptic. He worked for the government with Project Sign, Grunge, and Blue Book. And towards the end, he started to realize, wait a second, we're being really hard on these witnesses. And every time they say that they see things in the sky, we call them out and say, they're crazy, they're needy, they're hallucinating, they're seeing Venus, they're seeing marsh gas, whatever, but we don't see them or believe their accounts. But J. Allen Hynek was the one who gave us some nomenclature. He gave us the term high strangeness. And with the Sasquatchers, consider this. Let's say that, a couple of people witness a Sasquatch. That's one thing.
Right.
That's high strangeness, and you could let that go because that could be a coincidence. However, couple that up with footprints, and you got two elements of high strangeness. Couple that with sounds and smells, and you got something going on there. You got a disco, and
Right.
so there's something there you cannot. It's not a body. It's not DNA. It's none of that. But it's something that you can't look the other way around, even though the scientific community does. So
right. So I got to ask you, what do you think about these pictures where everybody's like, look right here, and you're looking, and you're like, what are you looking at? And next thing you know, it's pareidolia. What do you think about that?
Well, first of all, I think a lot of people want their 15 minutes of fame.
Oh,
they'll do anything to sell out and to sell their soul because they don't have any soul. They don't have anything. So what they do is this: they're codependent. That's what they are. They're sick, needy people. But
thank you.
The only thing I've seen that other than some of the footprints that Jeff Meldrum and some of the horsemen of Sasquatchery have documented and detailed, I believe that those are valid. But the only other thing that I believe is valid is the Patterson-Gimlin film.
I was just about to ask you about that.
In 1967, and that's the rock. That's the Holy Grail, and it hasn't been disproved, but I think that there's been a lot of academics who have stepped forward, like Jeff Meldrum, like John Napier, and said that it's true. Let me say something about John Napier, who I consider to be the fifth horseman of Sasquatchery. He took a look at this Patterson-Gimlin film and said, no, it's a hoax. And the reason he said it was a hoax is because Patty, and that's what they called it, it was a female, had the breasts. Patty had an upper part that was ape-like, and it was a body that was hominid looking, human-like. It was bipedal. So it looked like it was a combination of an ape and a man. So John Napier said, nope, it's a hoax. That was in 1972. In 1974, they discovered Lucy, the Australopithecus, in Ethiopia. Now, Lucy is the earliest known hominid that we've discovered, and they named Lucy after, do you remember what?
Yeah, I do.
What?
We have movies after it, too.
Well, but they named it after a Beatles song.
Yes, they did. I love Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds.
Yeah, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. Right. Okay.
Right.
So that was 64. So they're playing Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds after they found Lucy and all this. But anyway, here's the thing. The John Napier took a look at Lucy and said, wait a second, Lucy has an upper body like an ape and a lower portion like a hominid, just like Patty in the Patterson-Gimlin film. He goes, I'm convinced the Patterson-Gimlin film is authentic because science, i.e. Lucy, 1974, backed up that 1967 film. So here's a part where science steps up and fills in the missing blank, with our cryptozoology. So here's one thing that we could celebrate, So, thank you, Mr. John Napier, for doing that, for pointing that out.
Why do you think that nothing has ever compared to the Patterson-Gimlin film? What's your take on that?
I haven't seen anything else. I mean, if there is anything else, show me. There was in my book, I talk about the Colorado Bigfoot video. These newlyweds were on a train. Somebody shot a video of this Bigfoot walking through the valley there in Colorado. And this was during elk season. So, I mean, to dress up in a Bigfoot costume during hunting season is kind of stupid, unless you got a death wish. But it hasn't been authenticated. It just, it was just too. Typically, if you or I were to go and shoot a video of a Bigfoot, I mean, I would call the nearest state police, the nearest college, university, and say, look what I got, and I would let them go and validate that. That's what I would do.
Right.
And nobody came forward with the Colorado Bigfoot video. So I'm just assuming because of that, because it's anonymous, that it's a hoax, it's a fake. because real genuine people don't do that. I mean, if you
No.
discovered something, man, I'd be jumping up and down from here to Kentucky. So,
Right, right. No, absolutely. John Napier, what's his important role with everything, you think? What's
well,
your
again, he
take?
was, like I said, he should be the fifth horseman of Sasquatchery because of his what he did. He investigated everything. He was with the Smithsonian. He investigated the Minnesota Iceman. He had the president of the Smithsonian try to get a copy of that, the actual body to investigate. He investigated the Patterson-Gimlin film, and was able to have a bunch of academics take a look at that. So what Napier did was he was a primatologist, anthropologist, scientist, doctor. I mean, he did it all, but he brought a scientific medical rationale to cryptozoology, and he did a lot. I mean, he was involved in a lot of the big important events like Patterson-Gimlin, like the Minnesota Iceman,
Right.
etc. So he did a lot, and I have a lot of respect for John Napier.
No, I do too. And a lot of people don't understand that is actually in the past 10 years I got into what we call Bigfootery, don't understand that I call the OGs, right? The old gangsters of that. But
Yeah.
one of the things that I like to talk about, and this is something that I think that you do very well in, what's the difference between science and the supernatural?
Yeah, that's interesting. In Co-Region Hoodoo, Paranormal Tales from Inside the Pit, I interviewed Dr. Frederick Santee. He was a white witch. He was the high priest for the Coven of the Kata, and amazing individual. He was okay. Um, okay, very good. Okay, thanks, Sonny. So Dr. Santee. So when I interviewed him, he told me that he doesn't believe that there's any difference between the supernatural and the science. He said that they're all the same realm. We just haven't figured out the rules. Like, for example, you drop an apple, it's cause and effect. So what you see is the apple dropping, and the scientific cause, it's Newton's law of gravity. Okay, it's law of motion. So that's an easy one. But when people see things in the sky, orbs and saucers and discs, when they see
Right.
cryptids, what exactly is that? Well, there may be a scientific rationale for that, but we just, at this point, we don't know what it is. So
Well,
that's,
and I agree with you, and this is how I explain it to common man, right? And when I say common man, I explain this as somebody that has no understanding. And we go back to times where people had no scientific understanding, and we use the electric eel theory. So when people would touch that eel, right, they would get what? It would shock
yeah.
them, and they did not understand what would happen. So they were like, ooh, 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 bad, ooh, Satan, evil,
Yeah,
what,
yeah, yeah,
whatever. They
yeah.
did not understand the concept because they did not understand electricity. They did not understand science or anything behind that. So they at the time will explain things what they would understand what was around them, so they would blame something bad,
Right.
right? Electric eel theory. So a reaction causes a chain reaction, right? So, and I explain that to people. So, when you do something, that causes a chain reaction. So, anytime you make motion into force, force goes into motion, right? If we didn't have Newton, we would not have that explanation. So,
Right.
so you're right, and I totally agree with what you're saying. So, just like Bigfoot,
And let me just back up
mhm,
and interject,
sure,
if I may.
absolutely,
Imagine Newton, and I couldn't do this. Imagine him sitting under that apple tree. The apple drops, and he's able to figure out, wait a second, why did it drop? He's able to figure out
right,
with the gravity and all this stuff. I mean, come on, that's woo. That is like, wow,
right,
that is like, that's pretty amazing stuff to be able to put two and two together, two and two and two together.
right,
You know,
absolutely.
I mean, that is totally thinking outside the box. And one peeve I have is, when you take a look at something like the pyramids, the
Yes.
Mayan Aztecs and their pyramids and all that. And, and we say things like, well, ancient man couldn't have done that because they were too primitive. It
I
had
don't
to be
believe that.
the space brothers that came down in the spaceship and had to give them the technology. When you look throughout history, these academics, people like Copernicus and Galileo and Newton and Einstein, people that revealed the world to us. I mean, come on. These are people that, they were so brilliant. They were outside the box. I mean, they helped us see the world as it is. I mean, without them, we'd be in a cave. So that's
absolutely.
Homo sapiens rocks. I mean, give us credit for what we did. As a matter of fact, how exactly did they build the pyramids? Well, we don't know. I mean, you have like 15 answers and I got another 15, but we don't really know. Did they use 200,000 slaves and wheels and pulleys and all that?
Or did they what's really interesting? That a lot of people don't know that each block was hand cut, hand formed, and hand fitted.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't understand that they weren't all cut and just put together. Each block was hand fitted and placed.
Yeah.
They weren't all cut, then chipped and brought.
Yeah.
People don't understand that. So,
and it would probably take, we would do that today with computers.
Right.
I don't know what they
number them and put labels on them. Right. So the Lost Tribe of Bigfoot.
Yeah.
The book. What makes that book so different than any other book of cryptids?
Well, because I think we take a look at the whole thing. Like if you're interested in Bigfoot and whether you've been in this for a long time or you're just a new student to it, get the book and read it and find out about the history, the essence, why people are searching for this thing, why they lie about it and why they hoax about it, why it may be and is a new religion. I mean, all of that. Take a look at that and read it. And the book has a thing called IBT. I'm looking for my copy. And okay, that's real professional, isn't it?
No, so you're fine.
Here's the Lost Tribes of Bigfoot. And Grizzly, let me show you this. Throughout the book, you're going to find these barcodes. There's 8 of them. And what you do is you take your camera and you put it up there and hit that, and it'll take you to a 2-3 minute video of me doing a synopsis of that chapter. IBT, Immersive Book Technology. And here's a picture of me in Greenwich Village as a rock journalist.
Impressive. That's impressive.
With Jimi Hendrix, yeah. So anyway,
I was in Michigan at a Bigfoot conference. We talked about it, and I went on an expedition, and I just found out last night. We thought we were alone in the woods, and the guys were like, Grizzly, we weren't. So we're going to release the evidence tonight.
Oh, wow.
Or no, wait a minute. Was it tonight or next week? Next week.
Okay.
I had to stop and think. But stay backstage in a second. And how does people find you, follow you, and purchase your book, sir?
Yeah, okay. If you want an autographed copy of my book, look me up on my website, www.maximfurek.com, MAXIMFUREK.com. So contact me there. I'll give you a good deal, better than Amazon, I think. So, and I'll autograph it. And besides, Jeff Bezos doesn't need the money. He's a billionaire. So I do. You could contact me on my website, or if you don't want to do that, get it from Amazon or from Hangar One. Doesn't matter. But I'll ask you this: if you're going to get a copy of any of my books, please put a review on Amazon. It means so much to us authors. It really helps, in so many ways. So I'd appreciate a review if you would.
Yes, awesome. And thank you, Mr. Furek, for joining the Bigfoot Outlaw channel today. And stay backstage. I'll be right with you. Ladies and gentlemen, fantastic. It's always wonderful to have somebody of his stature to come on our show. Make sure and check out his book. And don't forget, we got another show coming up at 7 p.m. Eastern. And also at 9 p.m. Eastern, we got somebody at 9 o'clock that you got to stick around and see. She has been through some stuff, not once, but twice. And I'm going to let her tell her story on the air and what she does now. It is very, very traumatic. And she's also been on TV about her story. She's got books about her story. Grab your crucifixes and holy water. I can tell you that much. So yeah, I'll check that out. And don't forget, this weekend we are filming at 2 remote locations. We'll be streaming 24 hours a day. And what I'll be wearing, y'all will be laughing. And but yeah, Joey, you got to tune in for that. I got roped into this, but I'm all excited. And if you have any questions, reach out to me, and make sure to reach out and show Maximum some love. And I think I'm going to have him come back if he's up to it. And let's see here, from coast to coast around the world, ladies and gentlemen, we'll catch you at 7 p.m. Eastern time. And if you need anything, reach out to us, and Godspeed. Take care, ladies and gentlemen. Bye-bye.
Coming to a YouTube channel near you.